Hello and welcome to the show. This is Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty. Hope all of you are doing amazing out there and enjoying yourselves as much as possible. I was reading a news article. Every morning I get news feeds coming up. It's something called Smart News. I'm not really sure how they organize the news that comes to me, but there was a news article that came to me. And it was something where it's like, I wake up in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's just funny to see something like this when you wake up. So I kind of just glimpsed at this news article, and usually I just dismiss the notifications until I kind of get going in the morning. I don't like to look at the phone right when I get up, but when I turn off my alarm, subsequently I'm looking at the notification. So I see this, and I of course have to open up the article, but the article title is "A newly signed Georgia bill would make daylight savings time permanent, so criminals would have one less hour in the evening to commit their crimes." And I'm not sure why that made me laugh so much in the morning, but it seemed like just the craziest idea because, you know, the time that we change, it's not going to change the sunlight that's out. It's like none of that happens. Like, it doesn't really matter. I guess people will wake up later so they have less daylight. I'm not really sure what the logic there with that is, but apparently it's something that a few people have, or a few states have tried to push through Congress, but it hasn't had any feedback thus far. So I don't know, the idea is kind of interesting. I went on a Google search to try to see what that would be, as far as if, we did eliminate daylight savings, if that would have any impact. And apparently it wouldn't have that much of an impact, and would actually be better for people, because there's been like sleep deprivation, heart attacks, and strokes associated with daylight savings, which is something I had no idea about. But it makes sense. I mean, we get into a rhythmic sleeping pattern, and I guess it can make it kind of difficult to adjust to that. I think it was saying like 4 to 7 days for people to adjust to the new daylight savings time. So, I mean, I guess in some ways it makes sense, but it was just something funny to think about, because I'm like, criminals are going to do whatever they want. I mean, to think about criminals, I mean, people are going to do whatever they want to do. And sometimes people like, to do things in the middle of the day. So, it may be beneficial, but I just thought it was funny. And I guess, I'm going to get going with this topic today. But before that, going to do the box. And yeah, thank you all for sending these topics in. I appreciate them very, very much. And every topic is something that I think I definitely learn a lot from each one. And this idea of morality, as we were speaking about criminals and crime and stuff like that, this idea of morality, I think it's something that it's really been on my mind, because I've been waiting for some kind of moral dilemma to come up. But thinking about morality, it's something that I think we don't really think about, but it involves so many aspects of our life. So I'm going to go in with this box. If you have any ideas or thoughts or anything that you like to send in, you can send those to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com, or any of the social media pages that I will link at the end. So the topic for this week is morality, as I said before. And yeah, this is going to be the topic for next week, which is aging. That's it's I think this is going to be an amazing, amazing topic. And it's kind of interesting because I've been doing some kind of reading and reflecting on things, and some of it does have to do with this idea of aging. It's like what is this idea of aging? And it's something that I guess we all experience, but I think age, and definitely in cultural ways and spiritual ways or religious ways, they definitely all mean different things. So I'm excited to kind of dive into this and see what kind of comes forth with this. I'm not sure if I don't think there was any specific direction that the person wanted to go with this. I'll have to relook at that. But yeah, aging is the topic for next week, and this week is the topic of morality. So this idea of morality, it's kind of something really interesting, because as I was kind of thinking about morality, well, first I started thinking about this cartoon that like watched as a child, and it was like they sang, but it was like a cartoon where they played out some kind of thing throughout the entire show, and at the end of the show, they'd be like, the moral of the story. It'd be like, some kind of song. I'm not really sure if any of you are resonating with this, or if this was just a dream from my childhood, but at the end, every time at the end, there'd be some kind of moral that was supposed to teach kids, like, don't hit other people, or share with your friends, or don't say bad things to whatever. It's like it was some kind of moral at the end of it. And as I kind of think about that, it was teaching us morals. And if we have to be taught morals, then what is morality? What is morality? Is it something that we have inherently? Is it something that we feel inherently? Or is it something that we feel because we're told that we should feel it? We see that kids are playing at the park. Maybe your kids are playing with other kids, and the other kid takes a toy, and then your kid like snatches the toy back, and then maybe pushes the kid down, and then you go over there and you're like, hey, why'd you do that, Billy? Like, maybe you should share your toys and be nice, so apologize to little Timmy over there for pushing him down. And then he goes apologize, and then you're teaching him that this is the right thing to do. And as we teach kids to do this, I think that we're also instilling this type of moral code. Now, we can all agree that, taking things from other people and pushing them down is not the best thing to do, but as we think about just the way that we live our lives in so many different situations, we can realize that just our morals can be instilled within us, and they can be manipulated as well. They can be shifted so many times. I think there's so many atrocities, so many things that we can think about, so many situations that have happened where people have had their morality compromised in some kind of way. Situations where people have done something that maybe they initially wouldn't have done, but it was in some kind of specific situation. These are all things that we may have heard before. The situation called for it, or I had no other choice, or I was just doing my job. That last one is something that is so big. It's like, can our morals be shifted? Can we blindside our morals or the things that we believe because we're doing our job? And if that's the case, then what is morality? Because so many times we have this idea or this thought that morality is something that's the basis of all things, yet there are these things that happen and people excuse them. People come up with situations or come up with rationalizations to rationalize the immoral act. But again, like, then what is immorality? It's like we go through this kind of wormhole as we think about morality. And is there a set rule? Is there a set state of just what is true in pure moral code? There are so many things that people believe in this way. And as I was looking up morality and definitions of morality, there were at least like 5 to 6 different definitions. They all surround the same idea of, what people believe to be good or bad as far as just actions or things that we kind of get ourselves into, situations and decisions that we make. So if that's kind of like the general idea, then what determines something being good or bad? So I came across this article, and it was kind of this guy kind of speaking about his ideas of morality, and I resonated with, just as far as his breakdown of it, because I think that this is something that we can all kind of see and relate to in some kind of way. But when it comes down to it, we have to recognize that there's something more to this idea of morality than what we inherently think of. I mean, we hardly even bring up the word morality without some kind of context. Like, how many times have you even said the word morality in the past year? It's something that we don't even say much. It nonetheless like try to define. So I think that kind of obscurity with the entire idea of morality should give us some kind of indication that maybe there is some kind of gray area with this morality, and maybe there's something more for us to understand. So in this article, this guy breaks down 3 different ideas of morality: moral absolutism, moral universalism, and moral relativism. So moral absolutism, as he kind of explains it, is morality is something that transcends humans. That, it's something bigger than us. And people may resonate with this in like religious or spiritual domains where, just the idea that there's some kind of good and evil forces that exist, some kind of duality that exists, God being the epitome of good and the devil being the epitome of evil. And, we move towards these dichotomies, and that there's some kind of ultimate good, something that's bigger than us, where even if you don't believe in religion, maybe you believe in there's just higher forces that are guiding us towards things that are good and things that are not good for us. So that's kind of that idea of moral absolutism. Now, this idea of moral universalism, as he explains it, is the idea that humans as a whole have created this entire idea of morality, and that without humans, there would be no morality. There would be no idea of morality. And this is something that I think is really interesting, because if humans didn't exist, if humans weren't around, then would there be immorality? Like, there would still be death and killing happening, because, tigers and lions and stuff would still hunt down their prey. There'd still be, violence and fights between different groups of animals that may be fighting for territory or food or whatever that may be. So there may be things that are still happening that are similar to ways that humans interact with one another, but there's no immoral action that's happening there because it's just nature. So humans being here, humans even being around, create morality, and if that's the case, then we also create immorality. Because the death that we create, the death that we as higher beings, or the beings that are able to conceptualize good and bad, so to speak, we are the ones that are creating the bad. Because everything in nature already exists. Nature cannot be immoral because it's nature. So us being humans, this idea of human or moral universalism, is that humans have created this idea of morality. And with that being the case, we created both dichotomies of that. We created both the bad and the good, or the perception of that, which is something that's very interesting. So this idea of moral relativism, which is the last idea that he was speaking about with this breakdown of morality, but he was saying that moral relativism is essentially this idea that moral code is local and cultural, and it's something that, it's contextual. We have to think about each community and each state, each person, as having this kind of own moral code, having their own moral code. We can't go to other places and impose our morality because it may not be moral to them. So this is something I think on each level, maybe we can find some kind of resonation, or like resonate with it in some kind of way. I'm not sure if resonation is a word, but we can resonate with it in some kind of way because it makes sense to some degree. At least for me, they make sense in some kind of way. But as I kind of reflect on these three categories, I feel as though, like, just in my personal belief, that it's both moral absolutism and moral relativism. I guess, it's a really interesting idea because as I think about this, it's that dichotomy of either there's an absolute truth that there's just good and bad, like there are good things, there are things that feed us, that make us feel good inside, and there are things that make us feel bad inside. And that may be something that's just part of life and existence, something that's bigger than us. And that there's also a truth in moral relativism, in that in each of our situations, we have to recognize that maybe something may seem immoral to us, but to someone else, it's not that way. And just being respectful of other people's beliefs and where people come from and the things that they were told were moral, because again, all these things were taught to us. We have to value that and we have to respect that because we want that respect in return. But I think somewhere in the middle, as people, we recognize that maybe killing other people is wrong. Maybe hurting animals is something that's wrong. But then on another level, there are animals being hurt every day, being slaughtered every day. And that's a fact. Now, do we say that's immoral? Many will say it's immoral, but many will not say it's immoral. So where's that line being drawn? And I think as we think about this idea of morality in our place in this perception of morality, we have to think about the things that are the most meaningful for us. The things that we feel the most within us. Because even those people that have done atrocious things because it was their job or how they said it to be, they're still hunted with demons. They still feel excruciating pain from the things that they felt justified in that moment, the things they maybe dismissed and adjusted their morality, their moral code for. They're still hunted with the demons of their past because of that. So maybe there is some truth in there being things that spiritually or just within ourselves it's something that can hunt us. It can be something that morally, I guess we can say, is bad. It's wrong. Otherwise, we wouldn't be living in fear or sadness or in this state of anxiety because of the things that we've done before. So I'd like to believe that we do have this. There is something that transcends humans in the sense of that on a deeper level, we understand something that potentially can guide us towards the right things that we need for ourselves to thrive as humans. But then we also have the potential to do those things that will hinder our growth. And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's whether we allow ourselves to expand or revert or kind of just stay in the same place because of our actions. And it's not to put ourselves down for things. that we did in the past, because things that we've done in the past, we've done in the past, but we have to recognize how it impacts us. Those feelings that come up that make us feel like it's not something that was good, or that it was something that was good, because both of those things are things that we have to follow. When we say we follow a moral code, it doesn't just mean that we do something moral once, or we kind of, someone drops their books and we help them pick it up because we feel like that's the right thing to do, and then we're done. We live by a moral code because we have certain ideas and we have certain feelings about how people are supposed to be treated, how things are supposed to be, or how you want to feel inside by treating other people in this way. And by doing that and living by that, we are living by that moral code, and we can bring that into different situations, and we start resonating with that more and more. We start bringing that part of our identity. And I think that's the best thing that we can do as people. And this idea of morality, I think that it's something that's difficult to define, because it's something that is important for our journey as people. As we evolve and as we grow as people, like, morality is something that it lives within every action that we make, every decision that we make. Is it according to our moral code? And it can be something that is on a broad scale, where maybe we recognize the morality of hurting other people and we're like, I live by that. But what about the morality of hurting yourself with the words that you say? Maybe the dialogue that you have within yourself. How far does your moral code extend? Does it extend to only the external world and things outside of you, or does it extend within you? And I think as we have that compassion and have that morality to treat ourselves right, that will only be reflected in the external world. We will start being able to embody that more because we feel it more. Morality isn't something that's just a word. It's not just a right and wrong. It's who we are. At least that's what I believe. And as I kind of think more about it, it has to be about who we are. And I think as we recognize that who we are as people, and we start coming together and recognizing that we value love, we value connection, we value communication in different ways, we value peace. And although we don't necessarily have that in the world right now, I think as humans we can value that. We can value family. We can value, just abundance. It's like all these things that we can value as people, and I think that's something that we have to hold on to and recognize that maybe this is the bigger part of us. This is what we're coming to understand. And as we live our day-to-day lives, and as we go through our lives individually, we can start recognizing the ways in which we connect with ourselves, and how much of those moral codes that we're abiding by within ourselves. Something I was listening to was essentially saying something maybe I've said before in this podcast, that if you recognize love or kindness or beauty or whatever it is in someone else, you recognize those things because they are a reflection of you. You are reflecting those things. So recognize that if you are capable of seeing it in the external world, if you're capable of seeing it in other people, then that means that it dwells within you. It has to. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see it. And that's something that I think is so amazing as we just think about, just as we move as people. And, I think I'm trying to stay on this idea of morality, but again, I think this comes down to who we are as people. So as we think about just who we are and where we want to be and who we want to be, I think this idea of morality is something that can maybe even just guide us to help us to recognize some of the ways in which we live our lives, and the way that we live our lives within ourselves also. So yeah, I think that's really all I have with this for this episode of morality. And I know that this may, I feel like, I end up coming to like an abrupt end with some of these topics, but I recognize that sometimes I go on tangents. Sometimes I feel like I am very redundant, but it's like I'm trying to get this point across, that there's something that's working within us, and our day-to-day actions, our day-to-day beliefs, the decisions that we make, these are all impacting us, and they're impacting the beliefs that we have. And I think we have to recognize those beliefs before we can change them. We have to recognize them. And they are beliefs that may be limiting. They may be beliefs that are not serving towards who we want to be for ourselves and the goals that we want to have. And that takes a lot of inner work, and that takes a lot of kindness with ourselves, and a lot of recognition of the things that we truly believe. So yeah, just to make sure I don't kind of keep going on that, I'm just gonna I'm gonna stop it there. And yeah, if you have any thoughts or ideas or comments, I would love to hear anything about this idea of morality. I think it's something that's really amazing. It's something that I think could be debated or spoken about for a while, which is why I'm going to stop it here. So if you have any thoughts or ideas or anything that you'd like to share, you can send those to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com, or you can join any of the social media pages and send anything there. Instagram, everything.sunpodcast, Twitter, @everysunpodcast, and the Facebook group, @everysunpodcast as well. And yeah, that's all I got. I love you all, and I will see you next time.